Hello, everyone, and welcome to Holy Week Art History with me, your host, Ms. Banham. Welcome back. Today we're going to be talking about materials, and we're also going to talk a little bit about the history of The Last Supper by Leonardo da Vinci. So first of all, materials. What did Leonardo da Vinci use to make this painting? So up until about 1400, artists were using something called egg tempera. This was pigment, such as minerals or plants, whatever they could use to make color, and it was mixed with egg yolk, which was the binder. So a few things about egg tempera. First of all, it dries relatively fast, so as an artist you have to work quickly. Second of all, it doesn't blend, so it's hard to create those gradations of color that you might want. And finally, the final effect, the final appearance is a rather flat look. Actually, let's take a look at an example that I have right here. This is a painting, or it's actually a small part of a much larger painting by Botticelli. It was painted in 1480. It's from a piece called Idealized Portrait of a Lady. So I want to direct your attention up here to her hairline. So do you see this dark brown here going into sort of a mid-tone brown, and then this highlight here? That was not created by blending. That was a painstaking process of layering color on top of color. So you can imagine this is a much larger painting, how long that would take an artist. So right around Da Vinci's time, they started using oil mixed with pigment, specifically vegetable oil. So oil became the binder. And this was groundbreaking for many reasons. First of all, it didn't dry as fast, so you didn't have to work as quickly as an artist. You could take your time. Second of all, finally you could blend. Blending is good. And thirdly, it just opened up a world of chromatic brilliance. So many colors suddenly became available to painters. So let's see here. Let's talk about what Da Vinci used. So he used the second option I was talking about. So he took oil and tempera and applied it to plaster. Now, in a traditional fresco, a buon fresco is what it's called, pigment is applied to wet plaster. And then as it dries, they bond or they fuse together. And that makes for great durability of the painting. Da Vinci he knew he was going to have to take his time creating the Last Supper. So he instead decided to paint the oil on top of dried plaster. So he put paint onto dried plaster. And that's called a fresco secco. The problem with that, of course, is that the paint doesn't always necessarily bond or fuse to the wall, and it can begin to chip and fade. And indeed, that's what started happening to the Last Supper almost upon completion. It's been through a lot, this painting. In fact, I want to tell you a little bit about what it has been through. Let's see here. So first of all, let me pull up another shot here that might surprise you. There it is. It's kind of small, sorry about that. This is a view of the Last Supper. If you were to visit the convent, you can see there's tourists there, and they're all looking at the painting that's on the wall there. It's very beautiful. But I want to point out one of the first things that happened to this painting was that a door, as you can see, was cut into the wall, and so we lost Christ's feet. Take a look, you can see all of the apostles' feet, and then where that doorway is, we lost part of the painting. I mean, couldn't people just duck? Okay, anyway, that was a choice that was made. In 1796, Napoleon's army used the convent as a place for their horses. It was used as a stable for their horses, and it is rumored that his soldiers threw bricks at the apostles' heads. Very bad. Then, in World War II, the Allied forces bombed the monastery, and all the walls came crumbling down. The roof caved in, and what a disaster. It's a miracle that this wall with the painting on it was left standing, but it was wartime. They couldn't do much except put a tarp over it. So a tarp was over this painting for months before they could actually start rebuilding. Also, location. The location of the convent is problematic in that it often floods. So whenever there's flooding, of course, that creates moisture. Moisture can get between the wall and the paint, starts to peel. Pretty soon you've got mold coming in. And then, of course, just the effects of air pollution, dust, and tourists. Some people refer to The Last Supper as the world's most abused masterpiece, and perhaps it is. But let us all count our blessings that it is still standing. It did go through a couple of major restorations. One of them was started in 1977 and finished in 1999, so more than 20 years. At the end of that restoration, it's estimated that 42.5% of Da Vinci's work is still there. 17.5% of his work is lost. It's gone forever. And then 40% are additions from previous restorers. And there's always a heated debate about whether to restore or not to restore and how to restore. So I hope you found this interesting, learning a little bit about the history of the painting and the materials that Da Vinci chose to use. Thank you for joining me, and I will see you next time. Bye, everyone. Bye-bye.